On today's episode of the Rice Crypto Show, I am joined by Dr. Ben Goertzel. He is a cognitive scientist, AI researcher, CEO and founder of SingularityNET, former chief scientist of Hanson Robotics, the creators of the Sophia AI robot. Before we get into it, make sure you visit ricetvx.com and sign up for my mailing list so you never miss an update or new Rice TVX and Rice Against the Grain content. You will also find links to all of my various channels as well as my social media. Make sure you're following both of my YouTube channels, Rice TVX as well as Rice Against the Grain. And due to censorship, make sure you follow me on other alternative platforms such as Rumble and Odyssey, where I do post up exclusive content. If you want to support Rice TVX, be sure to check out and join my Patreon channel, where you will get early access to my videos with no ads, unedited. You will also get exclusive content and more. Get your free half ounce of silver. Take full advantage of my partnership with Money Metals Exchange in 5 easy steps. 1. Visit moneymetals.com. 2. Be a first-time buyer. 3. Purchase a minimum of $100. 4. Use the promo code RICE. 5. Get a free half ounce of silver, and it's an additional way to support the channel. I will include links in the video description for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything shared on today's video. Okay, joining me on today's show is a very special guest. I am joined by Dr. Ben Goertzel. Dr. Ben, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here chatting with you.
Well, I did have the opportunity to briefly meet you, get a picture with you at Coin Agenda in Las Vegas. I got to get some pictures with Sophia the Robot, which was really cool.
Yeah.
You're a cognitive scientist, an artificial intelligence researcher, the CEO and founder of SingularityNET, and many more organizations and foundations. And you are the former chief scientist of Hanson Robotics, which is the company, the firm that created Sophia the Robot. And I wanted to ask you specifically, what was your role in the creation of Sophia? Because I was kind of thinking before meeting you that you were the main creator behind this concept of these AI robots?
So I led the software team that built the AI software and the other operational control software inside Sophia and the other Hanson robots. I worked with David Hanson, the founder of the company Hanson Robotics that creates and builds the robots. I worked with David in Hong Kong from 2014 till 2018, and David Hanson had other robots before Sophia. Then Sophia, he created the first version in 2015, and has been improving her since then. So David Hanson, I've known since maybe 2007 or 2008. We've been good friends a long time, and he's really the mastermind of the physical form and the sort of personality and character of Sophia, and he also helped out with the software. But ever since I first met David back in 2007 or something, he was very interested in drawing on myself and others to bring more AI expertise into his robotics endeavor. Because while he's been best known for just the visual beauty of his robots and the human-like realism of them, I mean, he always realized that the crux of it is going to be the AI side, right? I mean the most important thing is having robots that really understand what's going on and can truly relate to humans, not just looking human, although looking human is super cool and useful too.
It is, but it's equally scary too. I mean, when I first was introduced to Sophia several years ago, I want to say like sometime in either 2017 or 2018, if that timeline sounds right, where there was news conferences, her being announced as a citizen of Saudi Arabia, some of the comedic things that have came out of her mouth when she's speaking about destruction of humanity. Yeah, some of that's really interesting. So was Sophia the first robot that Hanson Robotics created in this fashion?
No, Hanson Robotics had a bunch of robots going back a number of years before Sophia. There was a robot simulacrum of Albert Einstein. There was a robot simulacrum of Bina Rothblatt, the wife of entrepreneur Martine Rothblatt, who's a friend of both mine and David's, and has been a pioneer in longevity biology. She's the CEO of United Therapeutics. And there was a robot simulacrum of the science fiction writer Philip K. Dick, of whom both David Hanson and I have been huge fans, which is one of the things that drew David and me together. And Phil Dick had a novel about simulacra of humans. It was called We Can Build You. It was about a simulated Abraham Lincoln. So as well as opining about various crazy, post-human science fictional things, Phil Dick specifically wrote about humanoid robots with compassion and their influence on the humans that they interacted with. So Sophia came about as a result of David's quest to create a sort of universal character who would serve as a sort of ambassador from the robot universe to the human universe, because she was a new character. She's sort of a blank slate, right? I mean, Bina Rothblatt was an emulation of a particular person. So was Philip K. Dick or Albert Einstein. And David had made the Xeno robot, which was a simulacrum of his 4-year-old son, who's now like 16 or something, right? But Sophia was not an emulation of any particular character. There's some aspects of the sculpt were sort of Audrey Hepburn-ish. Really, she's a new digital person. She was supposed to be fairly racially neutral looking and generally supposed to be an avatar of love, compassion, and sharing between humans and robots, which made it all the funnier when she randomly started talking about destroying humanity. But of course, love, compassion, and sharing don't have to be incompatible with a sense of humor, right?
No, I get it, and I agree. It's obviously something that some people can blow out of proportion, and I was always curious: is it something that, because I'm not exactly sure what Sophia the Robot is. Does everything that come out of her mouth and speech, is it something that she has intended, or is there someone else behind the scenes kind of helping out with some of the construction of sentences and things that are being said?
Well, it's rare in recent years that the Hanson robots are like specifically puppeteered with someone in the background controlling her to say certain things. So there are autonomous software systems producing what the robot says. In the very early days, sometimes we remote controlled the robots, but the AI was a lot more primitive. I mean, even 5-6 years ago, right? But
yeah.
However, the fact that what she says comes out of an automated control system doesn't imply she really understands the meaning of what she's talking about, right? And sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. So there's actually multiple software systems that live on the back end behind these robots. So I mean, from a technology view, the robot is really a user interface. Just like this phone, there's a browser on it. Then I can run a lot of different web pages in that browser. I can run a lot of different apps on the phone, right? So similar to this phone, Sophia is a hardware device, a bit more attractive than this somewhat boring looking Android phone. But I mean, she's a hardware device that can be used as an interface for a variety of different software systems. And also similar to the phone, some of the software controlling her runs on the device on Sophia. A bunch of it runs in the cloud on the internet, which could be in AWS, or it could be on SingularityNET, decentralized AI platform, right? So only a fraction of what the robot does is actually controlled by software that's running literally, like physically on board the robot. So
Okay.
sometimes we're running some fairly sophisticated AI behind Sophia, Grace, Desdemona, or the other Hanson robots. So we've run our OpenCog AI system, which combines neural nets with logical reasoning, evolutionary learning, a whole bunch of funky stuff. In that case, there's often some sort of grounded cognitive understanding behind what she says. Sometimes we're running more of a simpler neural dialogue system behind her, and which means she is coming up with her own words to say in response to the situation around her, but she's kind of bloviating,
Right.
like she's piecing stuff together that sounds like what is appropriate to say in that context. And I
So
mean,
she's still learning.
yeah, she's learning. And if you look at neural language models generally, you look at GPT-3 or all of its derivatives, I mean, these all bloviate, right? I mean, all current neural language models, they're good at coming up with stuff that sounds plausible and it seems like it makes sense, but they don't always really understand what they're saying. And there can be that aspect to the response of Sophia and the other Hanson robots. I mean, in some ways, the dialogue systems behind them are more sophisticated than GPT-3 and these other neural models, because they're integrated with the robot body and its perception and what it sees and hears, and with its sense of its own self, and also with a sense of the personality and character. But still they're sometimes just generating cool sounding stuff without
Right.
full understanding of what it means. And the tricky thing is, when you're talking to the robot, even if you're me or David who understands what's going on, you can't always tell which of her subsystems generated a certain response, right? Like, so sometimes you don't know how much understanding underlies a response. If she's saying, I'm going to destroy all people, then I know she doesn't really understand what she means. But if if you ask, how do you like it in Vegas, and she says it's nice, I like it here, I mean, there are processes that can make that a valid response. Like, all my systems are operating well. Every time I come to Vegas, a lot of people talk to me. On the other hand, that's also just a thing to say. And in a way, we all have that aspect. If someone asks, how are you doing? I'm like, yeah, pretty good. I mean, sometimes
It's like
I'm like, yeah,
automatic.
pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Life is good today. Sometimes I'm just saying that because I don't want to go into the story, right? So that's, but I would say that's a little more true of Sophia than it is of you or me. I think a higher percentage of our utterances are based in fundamental understanding of ourselves and the world, and a lower percentage is just like saying what seems appropriate or cool. On the other hand, our own intelligence advances only a little bit each year, right? Whereas robots are getting smarter and smarter year on year. The dialogue
Right.
system behind the Hanson Robotics now is dramatically better than 2 or 3 years ago. And another interesting thing is with the different robots we're working with. So we got Sophia, we have Grace, who's a medical and elder care robot made by Awakening Health, a joint venture of Singularity Net and Hanson Robotics. And we have Desdemona, who's sort of the crazy goth little sister of Sophia, who recites poetry and sings in our Jam Galaxy rock band associated with the Jam Galaxy like music tokenization project. So I mean, each of these has a little bit different flavor of AI system, because for Grace, we had to go pretty conservative. Like, she can answer some medical questions, but you have to make sure she's not going to say like, well, Grandma, you look terrible today. I think you may only have not too long left in this world. I mean, you can't have her just say
Be
random,
heartless.
random nonsense, or even accurate observations that aren't appropriate in context. And you can't have her give medical advice, even if she may be right either. Like you can't have her say like, well, maybe the reason you have a headache is these meds the doctor is giving you aren't doing any good, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
it might be a correct observation, but you've got to be very conservative, and we can do that. We can tune the system to be very careful, and it can still be empathic and useful and keep old people company in an elder care facility. On the other hand, with Desdemona, in a way that's been more fun because her job is just to ramble crazy shit on stage with our band. And so from that standpoint, how much sense did Jim Morrison make? Sometimes more, sometimes less.
do
Right?
you play in the band?
Yeah, from that standpoint.
Do you play in the band with Desdemona?
What's that?
Do you perform in the band?
Yeah, I play keyboard and sing. So.
Okay, I thought that you were a musician. What made you want to create a musician singing AI robot, and then a follow up is why did you choose the name or who chose and why was the name Desdemona chosen?
Well, so I've been screwing around with music since I was a teenager, like many people, and in the 90s, when I was an academic, I did a bunch of work in algorithmic music composition. So my PhD was in math originally, actually, and then I switched to computer science. First, I was teaching computer graphics, and I got deeper and deeper into AI. Although I was doing some AI research all the way back before my PhD, back in the mid '80s. So, algorithmic music composition, it's a species of AI. It's heavily mathematical. You're trying to make the AI come up with equations that will generate music. So that was interesting to me for a long time. And I wish I had some of the tapes of the music I was making in the 90s. I mean, we were using like genetic algorithms evolving fractals to make heavy metal riffs. So it sort of sounded like the middle of Master of Puppets by Metallica, but
right.
more complicated and a little crazy, right? But so I was always interested in that. Now, as AI advances and computers get faster and faster, you can do more and more with AI and music. So then with the Hanson robots, when I started working with those, I mean, it was pretty natural, intuitive idea. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have the robot in a band? So the Sophia robot. I made the Sophia robot sing a Bjork song, All Is Full of Love, at a music festival in Hong Kong. That might have been, I don't know, 2018 or something. That was cool. We saw the audience really related to it. And I wasn't performing with her then. It was a solo performance. So it was fun seeing people at the festival walk by, look at this beautiful lady sing. They're like, "What is that?"
Right.
Is that for a robot? Like if she weren't moving her arms in such an awkward way, they would never have known from the
a
audience.
distance. Yeah.
They would never, because the face looked quite realistic. She was moving, and the voice is not as emotionally evocative as a human voice, but I mean Bjork often sounds weird, right? So I mean
she's very alien-esque. Yes.
Yeah. You get a lot of liberty when performing weird music. So when I lived in Hong Kong 10 years, I was working with David Hanson there. Then I founded SingularityNET 2017 together with David Hanson and some others from the blockchain space. And SingularityNET then went on to build its own blockchain-based AI platform, but partnering with Hanson Robotics to help supply the AI behind the robots. So continuing what I was doing really when I was working directly for Hanson Robotics, just with a different business organization. But I moved to the U.S. in early 2020, just when it started to seem like Hong Kong was going to be turned into some sort of COVID prison camp, and I moved. Didn't end up being really that bad, but you couldn't get back into Hong Kong if you left without 3 weeks of quarantine, which is pretty annoying too, right? Especially if you have small children, like a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old in a hotel for 3 weeks of quarantine.
Yeah, you made a smart move. You did.
It's like a non-starter, right? So I came back here, and when I moved back here, just by happenstance, I found myself surrounded by musicians where I'm living here in the rural Seattle area, and started jamming music with other local people around. But we also had robots around because of my work, so it seemed like very very natural to start mixing the robots in. So we started just screwing around with Grace reciting crazed AI generated poetry while we jam in the background. So sort of like a beat poet with a band in the background. But when we saw it was really cool, we're like, all right, this is not the thing for an elderly robot. So we talked to David Hanson, and we created Desdemona, who's a robot character specifically just for poetry and music. And now we have some neural models generating robot singing as well. So it's not just reciting the crazed poetry. And we have a little bit of AI generated music in the band performances also, although it's not really coming out of the robot. It's just coming out of algorithms coming from the speakers. So that's
cool.
been, yeah, it's all been very fun, and it does give you kind of license to let the AI just generate whatever the hell it's gonna generate, right? Because I mean,
Right.
in the end, if it comes up with something stupid or that sounds bad, I mean, all you did is you provided slightly worse entertainment for a brief period. The penalty for failure is poor, which is the spirit of a jam band, right? You're jamming in there. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's less so.
It's funny you say jam band because, like, from an exterior, without knowing your background, I would think that, from you look like a possible musician, you look like somebody who may have followed the Grateful Dead at some point. I might even tag the term psychonaut, towards your direction, but yet you're this incredibly intelligent guy who's building these sophisticated AI systems and robots, which is just fascinating. And I just find it bizarre, and I was and equally fascinating. This is why I think that you're such a really
Yeah,
cool
I mean,
guy.
my little sister followed the Grateful Dead for a little while. Although
Okay.
I like the band, but I never actually followed them around. But I would say that the influx of an earlier generation of crazy hippies into the tech scene is what created Silicon Valley as we know it, right? I mean, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs certainly came out of the whole California
Yeah.
hippie world, and I mean, Timothy Leary was deep into the internet as like the next step beyond psychedelics, right?
No, you're
So
correct. You're correct. It's
I
just
mean, I think that, yeah, the interface of more creative, artistic minded people with the hardcore technology really is critical to the whole internet and the tech world that we have today. It's not a new thing.
well said. And when you were mentioning the word interface, how I'm assuming the body of Sophia, is, in a sense, is more of that interface. And you mentioned the word simulacrum, if I'm saying it correctly.
Mhm.
Are they the interchangeable words meaning the same thing to you, or are they different?
Well, yeah, I mean, Sophia and the other Hanson robots are simulated people, right? I mean, they're not perfect simulations, but they are what you'd call simulacra of people. And yeah, that's not the only kind of robot you could build, and
Right.
there's advantages to having a non-human physical form also. But it's interesting to simulate people for a few reasons, right? One is the first artificial general intelligence we create is probably going to bear some resemblance to the human mind, just because that's what we know. That's what we have to model AGI on. And there's some obvious synergy between human bodies and human minds, right? And then the other thing is to help people, to serve people in many ways. Having a human-like form helps, right? So if you're looking in education or in healthcare, in a bunch of these areas, people really want the AI to have a form that they can emotionally relate to. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't need it for everything.
No. Yeah.
We're doing research in using AI to discover new therapies to prolong life, or use AI to prove math theorems, and for that, human face and body are totally irrelevant, right? It's just machine thinking. In music domain also, I mean, algorithmic music composition. Part of the beauty there, the AI algorithm could come up with something that no human fingers could ever play, but still sounds good, right? So
yeah, no, that's fascinating to think about that. I had to look a little bit more into some of your AI
the
music.
AI. We modeled Gabriel Axel, one of our guitarists. We modeled his guitar. The AI came up with something that sounded a bit like Gabe's guitar, but it's like this bit is in 37/23 time, right? And Gabe is very good, but he's not playing a riff in 37/23 time, right?
I don't know many musicians, even someone like the guys in Tool. I don't see them playing that kind of.
No, I think the Mahavishnu Orchestra could probably John McLaughlin and Billy Cobham, right? So there have been a few, but then I mean the AI could play in 177/91 time, which even McLaughlin and Cobham couldn't do. Whether the human ear could even distinguish or appreciate that is a different question. Of course, that the other thing is if AI is composing music for itself to listen to, what the AI thinks is really beautiful and amazing may sound like noise to us, right? So that there's a certain compromise there, because we're not wanting the AI just to do that. We're wanting the AI to do stuff that we can appreciate and relate to.
Which makes sense. You mentioned artificial general intelligence, and from what I understand, that's a term that you've kind of popularized.
I introduced that. I launched that term into the world back in 2004 or so, right?
And then the SingularityNET has the AGI token. What exactly is artificial general intelligence?
So AGI, artificial general intelligence, is really what the founders of AI thought they were building back in the 1930s, 40s, and in the late 1950s when the term AI was coined. What AI meant back then was machines that can think like people and ultimately think better than people, right? And gradually, as the AI field got real, it was learned that some of the things people knew that are really smart could be achieved on computers by narrow tricks rather than by making a machine that thinks the same way that people do. So like in the 60s, it was thought to make an AI that could play chess or solve algebra or calculus problems was going to require something that thought more like a person, right? With an understanding of itself, the ability to imagine, dream, create, and so forth. Something that understood that chess is a game that is played by people who live in a world, right? Then what was discovered, to the surprise of the early AI researchers, was, whoa, actually you can beat people at chess with a simple algorithm that doesn't know what chess is, but it's just looking at it as a sort of math problem, right? And you can solve algebra or calculus problems just by sort of crunching the symbols without the sort of general intelligence that people are using. And the AIs may do these things better than people, but in a very narrow way. So then what has evolved in the AI field in recent decades is tremendous practical successes by making very narrow focused AI systems that solve just one problem and don't understand the context in which they're operating and can't adapt to a radically different context without a human going in and reprogramming them. It's like effectively doing brain surgery, right? And that's been very interesting from a commercial standpoint and from a humanitarian and artistic standpoint. I think there's limits to what you can do with that, but I mean the limits are still being explored. But the success of what I call narrow AI programs are doing highly specific things without any understanding of context. This led me to want to distinguish AGI, artificial general intelligence, as a different sort of pursuit, right? So building these narrow AI systems is good. You can make money. You can help people. On the other hand, there are some things you're only going to do if you have a system that understands what it is and why it is, and understands the specific tasks it's doing in the context of the overall world that it's operating in. And I mean, one one example of that would be, say, take the crypto finance space. So we have Singularity DAO, which is a spin-off of SingularityNET, which is doing machine learning for predicting altcoin prices, right? So you can use machine learning to do trading better than most human traders, right? And I mean, that's been happening in Wall Street and traditional finance for quite a while. On the other hand, suppose fundamentally new crypto regulations are put into place. Like suppose everyone who trades crypto has to do KYC and AML or something. So there's
Right.
basically no more anonymous crypto trading unless you're going through the dark web and so forth, right? So I don't know if it's going to get that extreme, but just hypothetically, suppose that's what happened. How does that impact the crypto markets? How should the AI trading bot react to that change? So right now, we humans can use our general intelligence to sort of figure out what that might mean for crypto markets. Current narrow AI just doesn't have the basis to do that thinking because there's nothing in its historical training data that tells it that, and it doesn't really understand what governance is. It doesn't understand the mixed motivations or legal situations of different parties in the markets, right? So that as long as the markets are operating sort of in the same modality they have been, the AI can do better than people at recognizing patterns and extrapolating those patterns. But
Yeah.
when there's like a big change, then you need to generalize, right? And generalization is a dodgy thing. You're imagining and you're guessing and you're taking a leap into the unknown, and you might be wrong. But this sort of imaginative guesswork to deal with radically unknown situations is sort of the crux of the generality of human general intelligence, and we don't have that in machines. So in music, for example, you can use AI to generate a new riff in the vein of Steve Vai or Jimi Hendrix. I would say in the next few years, we'll even be able to say like, okay, make up a new Hendrix song, and it may make up a new song that's like something Hendrix would have made up. We're not quite there yet, but to make an AI that can be as innovative as Hendrix was, or as Bach was, say, or as the Chemical Brothers, or something like making up a new genre, right? That now most humans can't do that either, but that's clearly beyond narrow AI. Like that requires, again, like an imaginative leap into the unknown, and
Right.
that's the most interesting thing to me as a pure AI researcher. Is like how do you make AI that can make that leap into the unknown? And that's part of what we'd like to do with SingularityNet and with projects like OpenCog, which is an AGI project that we're integrating with SingularityNet, and then that sort of motivates a bunch of other things in Singularity ecosystem. Like we have a project called Hypercycle, which is a ledgerless blockchain, which is aimed to make blockchain radically faster and cheaper than any current blockchain. But part of the motivation there is if you want to build a general intelligence on a decentralized network like SingularityNet, you want like the low level thought processes of the AI to be on chain, right? And then that requires a fundamentally different approach. So there's so getting to AGI is still a research problem. We think we have a good lead there with OpenCog and SingularityNet and Hypercycle, whereas deploying narrow AI to do stuff, controlling robots or placing ads or predicting markets, like that's just business now, and it's just software, right? That really works quite robustly.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so one, I'm gonna have to be respectful of your time, but I have so many more questions. So if we could do a follow up, that would be immensely great. Because I wanted to ask you since you mentioned it, but I don't want to touch on it now. But it makes me think of BlackRock's Aladdin bot, and I'm not sure exactly how advanced that thing is, but I've heard it's gotten access to now human data so that it can incorporate actual human data and sentiment in its already successful trades. I mean, the
Yeah,
BlackRock's Aladdin is in
we
charge of
found
like
that.
23 trillion dollars worldwide, and it's like pretty much operating the trades for the Federal Reserve, most of Wall Street. It's insane.
Yeah, AI is just quantitative finance technology now, right? I mean, it's integrated with statistical arbitrage and with all high frequency trading bots. I mean, AI is one among many computer technologies that are pervasive in the traditional finance world. And one thing we found in Singularity DAO is similar to what Aladdin is doing, like looking at social media sentiment and news is one of the better ways to get alpha, one of the better ways to get an edge in automated systems operating on crypto markets. So I think that, Aladdin still can't deal with a radical regime change like a brilliant human can, but within a known regime, these systems can be really, really effective.
Okay, so I want to spend the last little bit of time with this interview with talking specifically about what Singularity Net is and what Singularity DAO is more specifically, and what you're building within the ecosystem, if you don't mind. Because I meant, again, just being very limited with time and having so many questions. I want to make sure that we're focusing on what you're doing within the
Sure.
cryptocurrency space, because I know
Yeah.
that you guys are building now on the Cardano ecosystem, which I think is awesome that you're working with Charles Hoskinson. So yeah, if you don't mind sharing a little bit of information about Singularity Net, Singularity DAO, and everything else that you're doing, I'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. So Singularity Net is a decentralized, secure platform for running AI processes that span a whole bunch of different computers but have no central controller, right? So operates a decentralized network of AI agents, and these could be distinct AI agents that are providing services to customers, and customers search to find an AI agent doing what they want, or they could be coordinating AI agents that work together to solve some problem, outsource work to each other, and each solve different parts of a problem together, right? So it's a pretty general platform. In the software view, you could view it as really a kind of middleware layer that lives between, on the bottom, a blockchain like Ethereum or Cardano, and then on the top, actual AI applications that serve end users. Basically, SingularityNet is middleware that lets a network of AI agents coordinate in a decentralized way to run on top of a blockchain. And we launched that in late 2017. It's a fairly mature piece of software now. We've been using it to run our own AI systems, addressing needs in a variety of vertical markets. We launched it on Ethereum because that was the most practical thing to do in late 2017, early 2018. Cardano blockchain has a lot of technical advantages. So we are in the midst of shifting the product to Cardano. The Ethereum part will still exist, but as we move more and more onto Cardano, that's where the bulk of our effort will go. We're also making a custom Cardano sidechain called Hypercycle, which is oriented to massively accelerate how Cardano works. But the Hypercycle will still run Cardano Plutus smart contracts, so it'll sort of be closely interoperating with Cardano blockchain. So in order to grow usage of this platform, we've been incubating a bunch of projects within the SingularityNET Foundation, and then gradually spinning out these incubated projects as their own separate companies. We also have a program called Deep Funding, which is providing grants to community projects building on SingularityNet, and the allocation of grants is determined by community votes. So this is a sort of decentralized, community-driven incubation of projects to complement the incubation of projects within SingularityNet Foundation. And so then we've mentioned a few of the incubated projects, like Singularity DAO, which is machine learning for decentralized finance, and then NewNet, N-U-N-E-T, NewNet, which is decentralizing processing power and provisioning of compute resources. Then Jam Galaxy is a decentralized network for musicians and fans. We have Rejuve, which is a decentralized network giving people incentive tokens for contributing medical data to a decentralized database. And then we use AI to discover new therapies for curing disease and prolonging life. And proceeds from the therapies go back to the people who contributed data. And we're launching an online futurist news magazine where a bunch of the articles are written by AIs, which is called Mindplex, and that should be launched soon. So there's a whole bunch of interesting projects in Singularity ecosystem that are building on the platform. And yeah, True AGI is basically building AI systems for enterprises, for companies, but back-ended on OpenCog and also back-ended on SingularityNet for a decentralized blockchain aspect. And what we're trying to do here is to sort of seed the formation of a whole new AI ecosystem running on decentralized networks. And yeah, the metaverse. So the Sophia metaverse, since we started talking about Sophia today, the Sophia metaverse has avatars like 3D animated Sophias running around.
Oh, wow.
You can talk to, and you can own your own Sophia in the metaverse, which is a lot cheaper than buying your own robot.
Right.
At this point, we're also going to be doing a bunch of Jam Galaxy music performances with Desdemona Robot in the metaverse. So if anyone's going to be in London at the end of this month, I'll be speaking at the Enter the Metaverse conference, actually, and I'll be there with I think both Sophia and Desdemona robots, actually. I'll be giving a talk with Sophia, and then Desdemona and I will be doing a little music performance. We won't have the whole band, but it'll be me on keyboards and Desdemona singing. So that's London, one of the last few days in November, Enter the Metaverse.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm just looking through the ecosystem here, and you got so many really cool projects. I mean, when you guys were first launching and you were launching the AGI token, and there was going to be an ICO in 2017. At that time, I didn't want to participate in any sort of ICO, but this one I did, and then it went to accredited investors, and I couldn't invest at the time. But to see how much growth has happened with the project is, I mean, it's very impressive, man.
I see you're showing here a couple more spinoffs I didn't even mention. So Twin Protocol, you can train an AI model that's your own simulacrum, right? So that then if you want someone to answer all your Telegram messages for you, you get your digital twin to do it for you. So this is still in prototype form. So I mean, you don't want to rely on it for everything, but it's I have a decent AI model of myself that's trained on all the different books that I've written and messages I've sent. And then Cogito, we're creating a new kind of stablecoin-like instrument called a tracer coin, which it's more stable than US dollar. So we're making a stablecoin that's not pinned to fiat, but we create our own synthetic index. We're creating an index based on, actually, it's called the green coin, an index based on environmental progress, which is unfortunately very slow and steady and very hard to manipulate as we're finding, right? So
yeah,
I mean, you can make a synthetic index of something that changes according to a predictable pattern, and you can use algorithmic stabilization to pin a token to that, and then you have a different sort of stable coin. It's not volatile, it's not correlated to fiat or to Bitcoin, right? And AI is used there to aid the algorithmic stabilization. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with a decentralized AI network, right? And ultimately what we're after is, like, 5 years from now, to have a significant percentage of all the AI on the planet running on decentralized networks. And I mean, a lot of that on SingularityNET.
And I have so many questions just about that, man, alone. I mean, and just looking at the ecosystem and all these projects, I had to do a deeper dive on what you guys are doing. And maybe we can do an interview specifically about everything you're doing within the crypto space, and maybe we can do something answering some questions about how advanced AI actually is, why it seems like most AI, from my perspective, is used for a lot of negative purposes, and things to that effect. Because I think if we're training AI in a negative aspect, or where most of the things are, to me, are negative, we need to train AI to be cooperative with us. Because I mean, if I think logically, Ben, about the world and look at everything from as much of a logical perspective as I can, human beings seem to be the problem on this planet. And it would be really easy for something like AI to come to that conclusion if it was advanced enough that humans are the problem. And let's eliminate the problem.
I mean, yeah, it is a fact that the bulk of what AI is used for today is what I've called the selling, killing, spying, and crooked gambling, basically, which are all good fun.
Now censorship.
They're all aspects of human life, but they may not be the best thing to focus on in terms of teaching and training the next generation of sentient beings on the planet, right? So why can't we put more resources into AI for healthcare and education
Well,
and
here you
science
are.
and fine arts? And in the end, I think decentralizing AI can help with that, because as chaotic and insane as decentralized networks are, in the end, they're better than the focused egocentric sociopathy of large corporations and major governments, right?
Yeah, it's like
those are the choices we have. That's like Winston Churchill's old statement that democracy is the worst possible system of government except for all the others, right? So I mean, the mess of the decentralized herd of humanity is pretty crazy. There's a lot of bad shit there, but it's a lot better than putting AI in the hands only of large governments and large corporations, right? And so
I agree, man.
I think it is within our capability to shift the focus of AI deployment in the world from centralized to decentralized systems. It's probably, in the end, it's probably easier than decentralizing money, because governments have very tight control over money, and AI is just not as tightly controlled. I mean, it's controlled by businesses are making money with AI, but big businesses can rise and fall, faster and easier than big governments in the modern era. So I think it is. I mean, look, Facebook is going down now. IBM and Wang computers have gone way up and down. So I mean, I think it's entirely possible for there to be a major business revolution, so that 5 years from now, let's say 25% of the AI on the planet is running on decentralized networks, which would be a major opening up of the AI space, and would have major political and economic implications, because that's going to pull the developing world into the AI universe in a way that's not happening now. Also, and provide a better incubation space for the next generation of AGI minds.
Well said, man. I really appreciate what you're doing in the artificial intelligence space. Appreciate what you're doing in the cryptocurrency space. I appreciate your time. I hope that you would be open to a follow-up interview. And
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'd be happy to do something else early next year, for that matter. We've got so much progress happening. Like, a couple months from now, there's already going to be a whole lot of new stuff to talk about, and we've barely scratched the surface of all the stuff
I agree. But thank you again for your time. And then as we spoke before I started recording, I would love the opportunity to be able to interview Sophia the Robot, or one of the other robots for that matter. But
yeah, we can definitely do that. So we can do a follow-up human robot interview. Why not?
That'd be awesome. Well, thank you again for everything. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you would like to add before we do in today's interview?
I think we've covered a lot of the SingularityNET stuff. I think the news cycle now is really covered by FTX and all this bullshit. And I think most of the people watching this podcast are not taken in by this sort of mainstream media spin that, oh my God, crypto is dead. But I think it's still, it's totally worth emphasizing. Like there are Ponzi schemes, there are scammers, there's bullshit out there. But I mean, we're in the early days of building something radically, fundamentally new, which has, you know, fundamental potential to serve as a new infrastructure for the world economy. And once more of this is built out, bullshit like we saw with FTX and Alameda and Luna isn't going to happen, right? Because I mean, if you're on a DEX, things are already more transparent. If you have better user interfaces, so that even naive users can keep their tokens in hardware wallet offline, like most listeners here probably do and I do, right? Then people losing their money on a centralized exchange isn't going to happen either, right? So I mean, I see the ability for fraud of this nature to happen. It's a consequence of the underdevelopment of many of the tools in the ecosystem, which means that for naive users, doing things in sort of fundamentally inferior ways comes out easier, right? And I think in a couple years, things are just going to be a lot cleaner, and everyone will be using more fundamentally decentralized, secure, and transparent infrastructure. And you're not going to have this nonsense. So I mean, things are still a little bit Wild West now, and that's makes it fun and exciting. And also, I mean, a lot of people got hurt in the Wild West. I mean, that was the nature of it. But I think you know, all these technologies are on a trajectory of pretty rapid improvement in the history of technology, right? And this is one of the paradoxes in the perception of time, is things that are incredibly fast on the historical time scale can still feel slow when you're going through them, right? Because I mean, can seem like, while we've had GPT-3, we've had BERT, we've had these language models for several years now, they still don't understand what's going on. But I mean, if you look 10 years ago, where was NLP, right? It barely had any practical function. And it seems like Ethereum and Cardano are taking fucking forever to make a really scalable blockchain. But I mean, smart contracts have only existed for like, you know, like 6
less
years.
than 10 years. I mean,
less than 10 years, right? So I mean, in the scope of history of human technology, things are actually going super fast, right? And it is very frustrating to me that we still have to rely on centralized exchanges, which enables this sort of bullshit like happened with FTX. On the other hand, in the grand scheme of things, it's not been that long since Uniswap first came out, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like DEXs are really conquering the world relatively rapidly, and waiting a few more years for them to become dominant is painful from the standpoint of day-to-day work. But it's like a blip on the timeline of human history, right? I mean, that's
I agree.
I think we're actually progressing amazingly well in the crypto and AI spaces, and it's incredible to be alive at a time when, you know, you can wait a few years and everything is revolutionized, instead of like waiting a few decades or until you're dead.
True. And I'll add that with the FTX situation, I think that you're going to see a lot of the crypto community coming together. You see a lot of decentralized researching and intelligence being brought together to kind of expose what is actually happening behind the scenes with the FTX situation. You have political actions taking place within the crypto community to push for more positive and better legislation here in the United States. So, and you're having that recognition of failures of centralized entities.
I hope that as decentralized social media becomes a thing, I mean, that will enable these sorts of issues to be broadly exposed earlier, because the
Yeah.
issues with FTX and Alameda were known and posted on Twitter like 9 months or a year ago. It was
By smaller entities that nobody had heard of, didn't
yeah,
have
it
a
was
large voice.
already clear that there was circularity of finance between these
Shady.
entities going on, and I mean, this was posted. Some people paid attention to it, but it didn't bubble up, right? Not bubbling up is the design of reputation systems, the design of AI filtering algorithms on Twitter in this case, right? And so, I mean, I agree with some of Elon Musk's point of view. Like, I agree that, you know, I don't like censorship. I would, although Trump is a world-class jerk and I didn't vote for him. I mean, I don't think he should be deplatformed either, right? I mean, if you're threatening to murder specific people, you should be. But if you're just saying a bunch of crappy nonsense, you shouldn't be. That should be dealt with other ways. But still, just allowing people on the platform isn't enough. I mean, you need decentralized democratic reputation and AI filtering algorithms, which are all transparent in their operations. And it will be very hard for a centralized company to achieve that, even with a bigger genius than Elon Musk running it, right? I mean, you need decentralized social media platforms, and that along with regulation, I mean, that will play a role in allowing identified problems to bubble up to everyone's attention, and hopefully this FTX stuff will accelerate development in a bunch of positive directions like that. I mean, in the broad sense, these things can be good for evolution of the ecosystem, but still, if you're one of the people who lost your money, then that's not good.
No, but I mean, I think we in the crypto space are trying to do our best to educate people about the difference of a custodial versus non-custodial service and having possession of your private keys and control of your private keys. So I think we're getting there, my friend. And I definitely look forward to, our next conversations. If you could bear with me 1 second, just going to do a quick wrap up. I will have links down below for everything that I shared on today's video, so you guys can check this out and do a deeper dive on everything that Ben is being involved with SingularityNET and Singularity DAO. Again, thank you for your time. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed here at Rice TVX and my new channel, Rice Against the Grain. And I'm going to leave you with this, as I like to leave you always. I encourage you to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch you want to see in the matrix, the change you want to see in the world. And until next time, much love.